The United Nations World Food Program, WFP, has released a new innovation report looking back on the year 2022. The report looks at how the WFP has used innovation to help tackle the global food crisis in a year where the world faced one of the worst humanitarian crises since World War II. About 300 million or more individuals impacted by food scarcity. Joining us now from Munich to discuss further is Joshua Okpata. He's an innovation design lead, United Nations World Food Program. Joshua, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to divert for a moment, Joshua, okay? Because I want to ask you about our communication leading up to this segment, and in particular, instant messaging and email, and the fact that you and I were going back and forth on WhatsApp referring to emails we had sent to each other. In terms of communication, Josh, is email still relevant since the bulk of the communication we had was on instant messaging?
Yeah, thanks, Francis. Very interesting question, because I feel like growing through your professional career, you've thought a lot about professional email etiquette and all of that. So I think that there are applications that are purpose-built, and emails are an example of that. So when you want to have certain kinds of communication under certain circumstances, you want to, use your emails. But at the same time, I do agree that with the proliferation of instant messaging applications over the years, one of the unintended consequences has been the reasonable relegation of emails to the background. Because with instant messaging, you don't need to start a message with "I trust your week is going well," or I hope this meets you, well, and all of that. So I guess we can say that email is not necessarily dying, but a lot more people are turning to instant messaging as a way of communication, but also much more important engagements.
What do you make of the fact that on social media platforms like Instagram, vendors have links to their WhatsApp business pages more so than email?
I mean, it's down to behavioral patterns, really. There's no reason to change a pattern that works, especially with customers. One of the first things you're taught in business school or in entrepreneurship is when people are behaving or living out their lives or purchasing patterns in a particular way, there's no need to change that. And so people use social instant messaging daily. An example is WhatsApp. The combined number of email users from the top 3 platforms is just a little less than the amount of daily active users on WhatsApp. So if you wanted to direct potential customers to use your platform or your service or buy whatever you're offering, the most intuitive way would be to let them communicate with you on WhatsApp. But there is also the questions around privacy, who can contact you and when. Before this call, I was looking at one of my emails and I have over 30,000 unread emails. I'm not going to go through that, but with instant messaging, there's a lot more control, and I agree it's not perfect, but there's a lot more control about who can, reach you under what circumstances, how, and less of the privacy concerns that we face with emails, especially with all of the security issues going on in the digital space these days.
Yeah, indeed. You got a big background in tech, so I had to ask you about that. All right, let's get to the report. How would you describe 2022 when it comes to getting food supplies to the most vulnerable parts of the world?
It can always be better. I'll start with that. But I would say that the WFP, as the largest humanitarian organization in the world, did amazing under the circumstances, because we went into the year knowing that 349 million people were acutely food insecure. And just for context, for those who might not know, there's a scale of measurement, the integrated food security, scale, essentially, for measuring how we assess who's food secure and who's not. So you start with food security, food insecurity, then you go to acute food insecurity, and then you go to humanitarian emergency, and the final stage is the famine. And to put into context, those 349 million people were at stage 3 or above. So it was a huge emergency, so to speak, going into 2022. But the organization WFP did raise a record amount of $14.2 billion, and we're able to reach 158 million people, about that across 120 countries and territories in the year. Over half of those were women, and part of the school feeding program, we're also able to reach a little over 19 million children in 55 countries. So I will say that there was progress. But unfortunately, with things like this, hunger is a big scourge we have to deal with across the world, and there's really never any letting up, which is one of the reasons why innovation is a big part of the WFP thrust into the future. And so, as part of the work we do at the Innovation Accelerator, we're able to support in the last year 106 projects and ventures, across a number of SDGs: zero hunger, good health and well-being, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, and peace, justice, and strong institutions, and positively impact 37 million people across 88 countries. And that was, with the perspective that innovation should be the tip of the spear in reaching the more vulnerable parts of the world. But of course, we can always do more collectively, as a society to get more people out of hunger and, of course, poverty.
Okay, so I mean, good job, but I mean, is poverty a looming cloud over what the WFP is doing? It seems like it is forever linked to that quest to get much of the population fed.
Yes, because for a foundation, the core mandate of the World Food Program is SDG 2, which is zero hunger. And there's a goal to end hunger and malnutrition by 2030. It's a goal that the world is trying to reach. But just to also properly situate this, we need to realize that poverty and hunger are very intricately linked. And so you can see why. Because, for example, with Nigeria, over 40% of the population lives in absolute poverty. That's under $2 a day, and these are things that you cannot really shy away from. And apart from the scourge of poverty and how it's linked to hunger, 70% of hunger is due to conflict. So every time we encounter a conflict situation, you need to understand that behind that situation will be a lot of people going hungry because they cannot access their farms, they cannot access supply chain, procedures, and all of the things that they need to feed themselves and feed the community and provide, produce to the market. And of course, there's the growing climate crisis, there are fertilizer prices, there's inflation and how it affects, the cost, the pricing of agricultural produce and just general everyday items. And of course, there are the inequalities that we have to deal with that almost always translate to food insecurity. So yes, poverty is a looming cloud. It's connected to poverty, to food insecurity, and unfortunately, something we have to stamp out if we want to get to zero hunger in time.
Josh, what about populations? I mean, I know you mentioned the goal by 2030, to end hunger. But if populations keep growing, then doesn't that put a strain on the resources and the efforts that you guys are trying to, make to, proliferate food? It's almost like I'm thinking of Avengers Endgame, where Thanos wanted to cut off half the population because he felt resources. And I know I think it's Malthus, as an economist who put that forward. What about populations? What have you looked at that as far as, how that is impacting the quest to try to end poverty and get food across the world?
Yeah, so I think that there are things that are reasonably within our control. And I wouldn't necessarily say that population growth is one of them, because population has steadily grown over the years. We know that the world is almost going to double, the population of the world is almost going to double by 2050. So that is definitely something that we have at the back of our minds. I think the core of what we have to do with regards to population growth is ask ourselves the question of how we can be more food sustainable under the circumstances. I feel like farming, we talk a lot about farming as an example and agricultural practices, but how much effort really are we putting into it? Because the food is not going to fall from heaven. We need to employ more agricultural resilient practices. We need to take into consideration that while we cannot, directly influence the population statistics, we can create an environment, a continent, a world where we're more food sustainable regardless of the population growth. And I know it's difficult to do, which is why it has to be a collective effort. I was reading I was in the flight recently, and I was reading an article by an architect somewhere in Berlin, and they were encouraging more people to go into farming on terraces and rooftops as a way of life, urban farming. And these things play their role in, ensuring, more food sustainability as we continue to grow with the population. So it has to go hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, it was an English economist. It was Thomas Malthus. So it's Malthusianism. That's the concept, or rather, the economic idea that populations are a stress on resources. Technology. Can you tell me what WFP has done as far as tech is concerned to aid the proliferation of food across the world, especially to the vulnerable areas?
Yeah, so earlier on, I did mention that innovation is one of the core thrusts of the WFP. And as part of that innovation drive, we've continued to support technological practices that ensure that we have sustainable agricultural involvement, particularly in the vulnerable parts of the world. So you would see these days we have we support a number of startups, for example, who do work around supply chain and logistics. We're now in the planning phase in a number of areas where we're developing remote amphibious, all-terrain vehicles, unmanned aerial vehicles, because because of the nature of what we do, we have to go into certain emergency areas. So it's much more efficient to send in unmanned vehicles and employ robotics in reaching some of these hard to reach communities. 35% of the over $3 billion that we gave out in 72 countries is cash-based transfers. We're looking into how we can make more of those happen, employing digital currencies and mobile money. A lot of the adoption is heavy in Kenya and in parts of Uganda, Tanzania, and Ghana. We're hoping to see more of this, especially with the leaning towards central bank digital currencies, like in Nigeria with the e-Naira. We're doing some more work around understanding how blockchain can get involved in the picture as well. And also we're supporting innovations that do allow people, because if you go into humanitarian emergencies, a lot of them lack access to the amount of water that would conventionally be used in agriculture or that smallholder farmers require. So we want to see how people can leverage smaller spaces and leverage limited water resources and make water more conservative in the farming practices. And so these are some of the things that we're focusing on. Of course, there's AI in predicting yield, crop yield, disease detection, and all of that. So I think it's going to be an exciting next couple of years, especially with like the new technologies we're engaging in, but also we're doing core work around some of the technologies that are available to us and trying to make sure that they're accessible to the communities that need them as well.
All right, I think we got less than a minute to go. What kind of year do you think it will have in terms of trying to feed the vulnerable in 2023 versus this report that we have for 22? So what do you think the 2023 report will look like?
Yeah, right now the projection is a little less. 345 million people are predicted to be food insecure this year. 17.2 million people in Nigeria are predicted to be malnourished. So of course, with hunger, the stats never really look great, but we're excited about the partnerships we have with local players, with governments across the world who form a huge part of our, not just donations, but knowledge sharing, and resource management, and also like engagement in the fields and creating more capacity for the innovations that we support and the interventions that we make to reach the intended users. So we're optimistic as well. As always, we have a new executive director, Cindy McCain, who has extremely important experience, and we look forward to what the year brings, and hopefully we can work even a step closer to arriving at zero hunger and an end of malnutrition by 2030, that goal.
Ambitious goal. It's an ambitious goal, Joshua. We thank you so much for talking to us. Joshua Okpata, Innovation Design Lead, United Nations World Food Program. Thanks for sharing the report. Thanks for talking to us about how tech can help to end hunger around the world.